And welcome to our business analysis program, Market Avenue. We are live on GBC News. We are live on Facebook at Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. My name is Morris Ogbete. Tonight, we talk about the blue economy, which has everything to do with the sea and the fishes therein. We also talk about illegal fishing. It is worth some 2.3 billion in the waters of 6 of the 7 countries constituting the sub-region of Northwest Africa. That's Mauritania, Senegal, the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, and for that matter, Ghana. It has been estimated that over 300,000 jobs are lost to illegal fishing in the region. Studies have found that poverty is increasingly and hurting fishing communities, which are responding in various ways to the impact of illegal fishing and declining fish stocks. Tonight on Market Avenue, we speak to Mr. Georges Ribello Pinto Chikoti. He is attending the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States Ministers in charge of Fisheries and Aquaculture Conference. We'll speak to him on that particular conference and how we curb illegal fishing in the sub-region. Before we do that, let's go to our base language for today, and we'll return to the Ghana Stock Exchange and bring you the latest on how the market is performing. Still watching Market Avenue live on Facebook at Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. Let's go to the stock exchange and get details on how the market is performing. So today we see just a marginal rise on the Ghana Stock Exchange, some 8.02 points in the main composite index. The financial stocks index doing so well. We see a rise of 14.76 points in the financial stock index, and that still brings the main composite index to negative 3.41. The financial stock index at 2.94%. By the close of trading today, we had some 320,441 shares exchanging hands on the Ghana Stock Exchange. That brings the market capitalization to 64 billion Ghana cedis. As of yesterday, was at 63.8 billion Ghana cedis. Let's look at the losers and the gainers for today. We saw the likes of Cowbank. Cowbank gained 2 pesos. As of yesterday, they were doing some 86 pesos. Now they're doing 88 pesos per share. We also see Ecobank Transnational Inc. So it was just a marginal rise of some 8.02 points, and the financial stock index going up some 14.7 points. And up to date, we still remain a negative 3.41 by way of year of returns on investments that we have on the Ghana Stock Exchange. We'll go for a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the blue economy, and we also talk about illegal fishing. A short break, and we are back. You're welcome back, and we'll speak to the General Secretary of the Organization of African, Caribbean, Pacific States, 7th conference currently ongoing in Accra. It talks about aquaculture and fisheries. We speak to Mr. Georges Rebelo Pinto Chikoti. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Welcome to Ghana.
Thank you.
And welcome to the studios of GBC News.
Thank you very much.
I guess you're having a good time in Ghana.
Well, indeed, it's a very beautiful city, and we were very well received last night when we arrived here by the Minister of Fisheries, and we are very anxious to open tomorrow the formal conference of Ministers of Fisheries of the 79 members of the OECPS, and it's nice to be in Ghana at this time. All right.
So when we talk about this particular conference, who and who are we expecting to attend, and what exactly are you going to be talking about from tomorrow?
Well, we're talking about 79 member states of the OECPS who have fisheries, and so far we have more than 50 countries that have confirmed participation at ministerial level, which is particularly good. We represent the regions of the Pacific with 15 countries, the Caribbean with 16, and Africa with well, altogether 48 countries. And so this is particularly a very, very important event for the Ministers of Fisheries and Aquaculture. And I think that the decisions will as well be very important, as we have failed to meet over the past few years, since 2019, because of the COVID pandemic. And I think that the ministers will have quite a lot to talk about and many decisions to take.
What are you going to be talking about this time round?
Well, I think they will be talking globally about all issues, but as you have already mentioned, the illegal and unregulated, unreported fishery taking place in some of our countries, and that affects the economies of quite a number of people. I was just reading the statistics showing that, for example, in Ghana, about 3 million people live globally in the fisheries chain.
Sure.
So I think you have quite a number of people across the OECD countries who have fisheries as a main element of their economy, but as well their diety in terms of food security and food proteins. So it's an important sector, and more important, particularly for the 38 island states. As you know, that among the 79 member states, 38 are island states who basically depend and live on the sea and depend quite a lot on fisheries. So if we have the fisheries sector organized, and if there is solidarity in the department, we can also work very well with our partners in terms of investing in those areas. For example, most of these countries also face climate change issues.
Sure.
And we have worked quite well with our European partners in investing into fighting the challenges of the conflict, I mean of the climate change, sorry. And I think that there are quite a number of programs which help.
So we'll be talking much into detail about the effect of climate change on fishing. But here in West Africa, the issue of illegal fishing is very prevalent. Is it the same in the other parts where you have member states in the Caribbean, in the Pacific?
Yes, I think the fishing sector is indeed affected by this phenomena. Globally, you should have about $25 billion coming out of this sector, but here in the West Africa, you lose about $2 billion plus dollars every year.
Sure.
So I think it is quite important in this region, and probably in other regions as well. Statistically, it could be important, and therefore these are some of the issues that countries and governments have got to be sensitive to. And I think that during this conference, the ministers will propose a number of solutions to curtail this phenomenon.
And I guess this won't be the first time you'll be talking about illegal fishing. And so as a group, what should be done to prevent this this phenomenon, which is depriving people of their livelihoods and of better conditions of living?
Well, I think that at the OECPS level, one of the first things that we have tried to build over the past years is to build solidarity of the organization. One thing. Second thing is to make sure that when we make these conferences of ministers, they are successful. At the beginning, I think there was very little participation. And when we were preparing for this conference, at one time we had only 30-something countries. Now we have about 51 countries that have confirmed that they will be here.
Right.
I think that the more we meet and take decisions, the more our message also goes through to other partners. First is that I think an interest should be given to this particular sector, which is the source of living of many economies, many families. And if we all become sensitive to the fact that we have got to find means and ways of curtailing the illegal fishing, unreported fishing, irregular fishing, all kinds of piracy, I think then that is also a good step that we will make to go forward.
Right.
We may need to take other decisions, but I think if there is a major control and that governments can work in a coordinated manner in one region to make sure that both our naval forces, our own fishery departments work together, then we can do quite a lot to make sure that we control our areas of fishing. And as well, I think it's also important that we don't deplete all our resources that are in the seas. Right. And that's why there is more and more aquaculture being talked about as another way of producing fish resources which we can produce through aquaculture.
Right.
And I think that that's why, because it's indeed very important, as you may see. Right. It's one of the major sources as well for animal protein. Right. And from this you can see how high fish counts in the dietary.
Right. So what would be the strategy for aquaculture? Here in Ghana, we're still at the nascent stages of our aquaculture industry. What would be the approach that you bring to the table to help, especially West Africa,
well, I think,
when it comes to aquaculture?
Yeah, well, I think you have most of the experts are bringing the different experiences that they have. I think that it is important, first of all, to build that solidarity of exchange of experiences, how each one of our own countries is doing. And I think that it's important that we also know how much of fish is it that we consume every year, and how much of that is it that we can sell. And I think that in Ghana, quite an important work has been done.
Sure.
I have been speaking to the Minister of Fisheries, and it seems that it's a very, very dynamic sector. First is that there is an important of the fish industry that comes into the consumption of the Ghanaians every day. There is a small part of that which is also exported, and I think that is important when we have to think about the food security of Ghanaians. But I think that globally what's important is that ministers should exchange experiences in terms of how they can, on one hand, exchange strategies of improving the aquaculture sector, because it is in some areas it's new, some are quite advanced, but I think the experiences can be very important in terms of having the technology dominated locally, and then to make sure that we can as well do the culture of fish while we also depend on the natural reproduction process of fish.
Do you think that it's time countries review their fishing acts, the laws that back fishing? I mean, I've been going through the Fisheries Act of Ghana, and it does appear that the focus is on the fish and not the people, the Ghanaian who go to catch the fish. Some of them work in very deplorable conditions. They are employed by, Chinese who pay them peanuts, who don't take good care of them. is it time we review our Fisheries Act?
Probably. I think not only Ghana should do that, I think quite a lot is being done, but all others should do that to make sure that our people are fully equipped in terms of first legislation, the tools that they might need as well to catch fish, and to show that they may work for themselves and produce well for themselves, and rather than work for somebody else. I don't know exactly what the dimension of the problem you have mentioned is in Ghana, but probably there are a few more problems taking place in other places. I think that fish is something that all nations are looking for. It's an alternative to meat in many cases, or it adds upon something else other than meat, so people want fish. So I think it's important that governments get involved, and I've seen that in Ghana that's quite important. His Excellency the President will be with us tomorrow at the opening session. So I do recognize how important this sector is in Ghana, and I think that's the commitment that I'm expecting that other governments will also do to support this sector, to give more and more instruments to improve policies, but also to improve on how people can catch the fish better, how it can serve them better, both in their diets as it's already being done. And I think that there is indeed that commitment from the Ghanaian government, as I
also know you'll be talking about artisanal fishing tomorrow. Is that correct?
Indeed.
What aspect of artisanal fishing will you be talking about?
Well, I think that artisanal fishing occupies as well quite an important part of our populations, because you know most of the people of the OECPS do not have the industrial capacity that some of the sophisticated companies have, who will come in the region and take everything out. So generally what we have in most of our countries are indeed artisanal fishers who will catch some of the fish for their consumption and some of the fish that they can sell. But I think what is important is to make sure that these sectors are protected first by our own governments, but also to make sure that they get the best out of fish that they can do. I think that we can also encourage them not to overfish in certain areas. For example, I think some of the practices of our own artisanal fishing have also impoverished some waters, some lakes. But I think what we can do is that we work together with them, which are the periods of fishing that can be used intensively, and which ones are those that they can, let the fish grow and have a better, so they can have a better catch, particularly in certain lakes.
So in Ghana, for instance, we have the close season, which happened somewhere in August. And I think yesterday the minister was saying that the West African countries are trying to learn that.
Exactly.
Is it a common phenomenon?
Not in every place, but I've heard that the minister, he has done quite a lot of progress in taking some of those decisions whereby, they will let the fish have that period of time when they reproduce a lot more, and then that period will not be the period when they fish, and then open the fishing during the moments when, it's not that period that they are reproducing. So I think it is important to have all those policies. I think that here you are quite advanced in those techniques, but in other regions people may not be doing that, and I know that some are not yet doing that. So it's really important to make sure that you let the fish reproduce. You don't go out and catch fish every day just because you're looking at how much you can get out from there, but you should let the fish reproduce and grow. And I think that's why you can alternate between aquaculture and just the natural way of
now let's talk about climate change and depletion of the fish stock. Can you help us understand how much climate change has affected the fish stock? I mean, there are people who don't even believe in climate change in the first place.
Well, no. I think that the issues of climate change is indeed a serious one. You do have now more rains than you ever had. You also have more drought than you ever had. There are also many island states that may disappear one day just because of a lot of water, the rise of waters. So indeed, we have to make sure that we contain our ways of polluting to lesser standards. And the problem with most of our island states is that they are the less polluters. We pollute our waters very less.
Sure.
And yet the highest polluters are indeed
The West.
developed countries.
Sure.
So the challenge we face here is to sensitize them, to make sure that, hey, look, your ways of living, they are destroying the marine wealth that we have in there. Marine life is dying
Sure.
because of pollution. And if we pollute the waters and that we can no longer fish, or if the fish dies, then first of all, you are killing those fishing communities, the fishing islands. Remember that in many of the island states, fishing is one of the most important activity which brings money to the table.
Sure.
And so if those communities can no longer fish, then they may not have any other thing. Some may have probably tourism. But you will find quite a lot of countries that have two commodities. And so if they can't fish and probably there is no tourism, for example, the periods of COVID that we had, some countries could not have tourism.
Sure.
So in that case, then you are killing a community. So the struggle of the OECPS is that we should build the solidarity of member states to make sure that we can defend not only the big ones, but particularly the smaller ones.
Sure.
To make sure that our methods of life do not pollute the waters, so that they can no longer fish, so that we kill the marine life. What we want is to make sure that there is less pollution and at least there is life for people who live.
So we'll be wrapping up on this
states.
interview very much shortly, but I want to understand from you, are we able to solve most of the challenges that we seek to solve with meetings like the ones we're going to have tomorrow, so that we don't keep coming back every year and having the same conference and going back and coming back to talk about the same problems?
Well, I think the Minister of Fisheries meet every 2 years. I think that the interest of meeting, first of all, is to make sure that you catch up from where you were, you project for where you're going. Remember, we are poor countries. We're 79 poor countries. And our strength resides in this unity and solidarity, which makes us cooperate. And when we go, may it be at WTO or at UN level, we all talk with the same voice. We are defending our products. We are defending ourselves from the bigger nations who have stronger capacity of polluting. But we're also attracting them to the issues of the climate change. Remember that when we went into COP26 in Scotland, they produced a very strong statement, and the commitment of big nations is that they're going to prepare $100 billion to invest into. In 1 year, you may have 3 or 4 of these things happening at one time.
Sure.
Countries have lost as much as 40% of their wealth with only one cyclone. So what we're trying to say is that, hey, big nations, look at what you may provoke, look at where we are, and remember that we are part of the human community, and you cannot have habits that can destroy the lives of the smaller ones or the weaker ones.
Sure.
So
unfortunately, China has chosen to do more of pollution, you know, at the last, you know, the COP26. But thank you very much, sir. Where is the conference tomorrow?
The conference starts tomorrow at 10 at the
Labadi Beach Hotel.
Exactly.
Right. So certainly we're going to be there to, to capture, some of the
Thank
exciting moments of that particular conference. And so, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much
for accepting to speak to us.
Thank you very much. It was also a pleasure for me to be received by yourself.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
so, Mr. Georges Rebelo Pinto Chikoti is the Secretary General of the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific Ministers in charge of Fisheries and Aquaculture, and he's attending that conference tomorrow. This is all time will allow us. We'll see you again tomorrow for another edition of Market Avenue. My name is Morris Ogbete. I've been doing this in the stead of Edward Nyako, who is attending to other equally important matters elsewhere. See you tomorrow. Bye.